You know, when we picture the criminal underworld, most of us still imagine something kind of chaotic and messy, right? Back alley deals, disorganized street gangs, just brute force survival. But today, in this explainer, we're diving into a completely mind-blowing investigation by journalist Mariana Vanzeller, and it absolutely shatters that old illusion. She reveals the startling transformation happening in organized crime all over the globe. The modern criminal underworld is rapidly evolving to perfectly mirror the legal, highly structured corporate world. It is wild. So, here's our agenda for today. We'll cover 5 key areas. We're going to start by defining these modern black markets, then examine the corporate pipelines of migrant smuggling, look at the brutal rise of the cocaine queens, uncover the highly engineered DIY steroid epidemic, and finally, discuss what this relentless evolution means for the future. We're essentially taking a global tour to see exactly how this massive shift is happening. Let's get into it.
Part 1, Inside Modern Black Markets. So let's start with our overarching thesis here, which is pretty simple. The underworld just isn't what it used to be.
The evolution here is absolutely undeniable. In the past, black markets were defined by disorganized street gangs and lone wolf smugglers who relied entirely on brute force to get their way. But honestly, brute force alone doesn't scale. As global law enforcement got smarter and borders got tighter, criminals had to either adapt or die out. Today, those chaotic factions have been replaced by professionalized, demographically diverse, and incredibly tech-savvy operations. I mean, these modern black markets operate just like massive global corporations now. We're talking distinct operational departments, streamlined supply chains, and specialized personnel handling everything from logistics to PR. Part 2, Corporatizing Migrant Smuggling. For our first real case study, let's look at how this plays out at the US-Mexico border. There has been an immense shift between the old, chaotic methods of migration and today's highly systematized pipeline. It used to be all about jumping on La Bestia, those incredibly dangerous, notoriously deadly freight trains that migrants rode on top of for free, just hoping and praying to survive the journey. Now, that entire process has been monopolized and corporate managed. The operation is controlled by cartel-approved transport companies that utilize organized logistics, shipping containers, and, get this, literal finance departments. Yeah, they function with HR-like structures to process payments and manage incredibly complex illicit budgets. And the cost of doing business in this new corporate structure? It's astronomical. A boss known by the street name King Coyote now charges a staggering $12,000 per person to navigate this pipeline. 12 grand. That's not just a simple fee. It is a massive, life-altering debt. It's often financed by entire extended families pooling their life savings together back home. It perfectly highlights just how absolutely ruthless this modern corporate model really is. This modern smuggling pipeline is incredibly organized, and it's operating right out in the open. It's truly surreal. They're actively recruiting American drivers via TikTok, literally pitching highly illegal activities using trending audio and glossy social media campaigns like it's a legitimate gig economy job. They use that $12,000 fee to guarantee cartel-approved passage and bypass border checkpoints utilizing systemic, pre-negotiated government bribes. Once at the border, migrants are held in designated stash houses until their families wire the final payments. It's a ruthless business model exploiting the 1.6 million people currently awaiting asylum. And it's compartmentalized so strictly that even the low-level drivers have absolutely no idea what the big picture looks like. But, a corporate pipeline needs capable corporate management. So who exactly is stepping in to replace the old guard of this evolving criminal underworld? Well, as the structure of crime changes, so do its leaders. Which brings us to a massive demographic shift happening further south. Parts 3. Rise of Cocaine Queens. We're traveling to Brazil and Colombia to witness the violent emergence of these new commanders. Just as women are breaking glass ceilings in the legitimate corporate world, we're seeing a similar, albeit incredibly violent shift in organized crime. The old guard was entirely defined by a machismo culture, dominated strictly by men like Pablo Escobar. But today, the new commanders include people like Rio's 21-year-old Hello Kitty and Colombia's Sonia. These are young women who are violently taking command of traditionally male-dominated cartels. They're commanding units of hitmen, managing vast territories, and demanding the utmost respect in a hyper-violent world that historically would never have even let them near the boardroom. So why is this happening right now? Well, to put things into perspective, 1,800 people were killed by Rio police in 2019 alone. 1,800. That is nearly twice the number of people killed by police in the entire United States that same year. This brutal, literal life and death turnover rate among male gang members has created a massive leadership vacuum, and ambitious, ruthless women are stepping right up to fill that void.
There is a quote from the investigation that really sums this up. Narco trafficking is a man's world, traditionally. Almost never do you see a woman occupy a position of power. Yet leaders like Sonia in Colombia now manage 30,000 acres of coca. And what's really chilling is her dark character arc. She actually started as a victim of this violence. Her father was murdered by paramilitaries when she was just 12 years old. But the so-called progress of the modern underworld means she's been transformed from a traumatized victim into one of its chief perpetrators. She operates exactly like a CEO, commanding professional assassins without even batting an eye.
So, we've seen how this corporate evolution is driven by survival and power in the drug and smuggling trades. But what happens when the black market isn't targeting survival, but rather our deepest human vanity and the quest to become physically superhuman? Part 4, the DIY steroid epidemic. Let's head back to the US and enter a booming underground industry that's currently servicing an estimated 4 million Americans. The shiny new product driving this highly lucrative market are called SARMs, or selective androgen receptor modulators. Basically, these are experimental, completely unapproved performance-enhancing drugs being pushed super aggressively as the future of steroids by online fitness influencers. A prime example is this guy, the self-proclaimed Dr. Tony Huge. But the shocking absurdity here, he has absolutely zero medical training. None. He's actually a retired lawyer who just spends his time creating experimental chemical formulas for human consumption, completely bypassing all FDA regulations. Just listen to the seductive, quasi-religious pitch they use to psychologically manipulate their buyers. Instead of using medicine to make us average, we can use medicine to make us evolve. Wow, it's incredibly persuasive, right? And this messaging isn't hidden away in dark alleys somewhere. It is marketed directly and relentlessly via social media to vulnerable teenagers, deployed soldiers wanting an edge, and everyday suburbanites who are just desperate for physical perfection.
And the DIY supply chain behind all this, it is startlingly efficient. First, underground chemists order raw, banned chemicals directly from China. To bypass sophisticated customs checkpoints, they literally just swap a label disguising deadly experimental chemicals as mundane baking flour. Crazy, right? Second, they mix these formulas in clean, seemingly legitimate underground US labs. And finally, they promote and sell these biohacking concoctions directly to the consumer using influencer marketing, totally democratizing the entire supply chain.
But those glossy Instagram posts hide a terrifying reality. The tragic irony is that the people seeking physical perfection are completely destroying their bodies. The hidden costs of this biohacking include amateurs actually injecting unapproved horse steroids like AMP right before bodybuilding competitions. We are seeing users experience severe heart failure in their 30s and suffering massive infections that require multiple surgeries and amputations just to stay alive. And when the FDA or DEA finally closes in on this corporate structure, the sellers act like any multinational corporation facing regulatory hurdles. They simply offshore their operations to places like Thailand to evade US law and continue their human experiments uninterrupted. Part 5. Evolution of the Underworld. So let's bring all these distinct threads together to really understand what this means for the future of global black markets. It's essentially a dark mirror of corporate progress. On one side, you have legitimate global business. On the other, you have cartels utilizing finance departments and recruiting employees on TikTok. You have female leaders violently breaking criminal glass ceilings to fill executive voids. And you have underground chemists leveraging global supply chains and influencer marketing to push illegal drugs. This progress creates a highly efficient, decentralized, corporate-style black market that makes these networks incredibly resilient and, honestly, nearly impossible for traditional law enforcement to completely dismantle. So if modern black markets are simply a dark reflection of corporate progress, what does this relentless evolution reveal about our deepest human desires for power, survival, and perfection? It leaves us with this final, chilling realization. The black market isn't just adapting because of new technology or better logistics. It's adapting because it is entirely fueled by the unstoppable extremes of human nature. Whether it's the sheer desperation for a better life, the ruthless drive for power, or the vain quest for physical perfection, as long as these desires exist within us, the corporate underworld will always find a highly efficient way to supply the demand.